Shawna and Jody here with Real Sisters, Real Talk.
We're glad to have you joining us as we talk about growing in our faith with God.
Hey, welcome to Real Sisters, Real Talk. I'm Shawna, and that's my sister Jody, and we just love having these conversations with you and your willingness to be able to just kind of go on a journey with us and see where the conversation goes. How you doing, sister?
I'm doing great. It's been a fun and busy week. It's a fun season in church life leading up to Easter. And so that's always a good and joyous time. Lots of gatherings and things like that. So doing really well. Lots of time with family. It's been good.
It is
Yeah.
good. That's good for the soul. I had one of those days yesterday where I worked. I get up at an ungodly hour. I'm just going to say, I have been trying something new, and I've been getting up at 3:30 in the morning so that I can get 30 minutes of cardio in before I get ready for work. I've been doing that for like 2 weeks, which is maybe crazy, but I like it.
Do
So
you?
we're just gonna go with it for right now. I'm getting on the indoor cycle because it's really, really dark at 3:30 in the morning, FYI. But I'm getting on an indoor cycle for 30 minutes and getting a good cardio in, and it's really, really a great way to kickstart the day.
Good for
So
you.
anyway,
I love to work out in the morning. That's my favorite time to work out. So yeah.
well, me too. But when I
But not
started
at
this job, I
3:30.
thought that was not an option anymore. But here we are. I guess I've adjusted to my early mornings to bump it another half hour is not that big of a deal. But
As long as you go to bed on time.
yeah, it's working. So
Yeah.
yesterday I got up at 3:30, and it was just one of those days where, I worked, put in my 8 hours, I had a doctor's appointment, came home, and I had a couple of meetings yesterday. So I just still had work to do once I got home from work. So then I sat and worked a little bit from home at my laptop, and then that wrapped up, and I have a speaking engagement this weekend. So I opened a different window and kept working at my laptop, and it was 7:30, and I was like, "Oh, I need to go to bed because my alarm's going to go off at 7:30 tomorrow or 3:30 tomorrow morning." So it's just one of those like ginormous days that was just all work. So to hear you say that you're just experiencing a sweet balance of family time and whatnot is like, woo, a good reminder that I need to prioritize that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
On Sunday afternoon, Tyler and Kellen and Faye, my son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter, came over, and Austin and Lauren were here as well. And we had lunch together after church, and it was an impromptu gathering, and spent the
Hmm.
afternoon together. And it was so fun. It was relaxing. But there's something about, and I know that that's family, but there's something about gathering together and just being in community that's so life-giving. And it was very much, and granted, also as a mom, like, a lot of you have heard us say this over and over again. Sean and I both say this, like, there is nothing better than having all of our ducks in the house. Like, it's just, I love
That's right.
having my family home. And my kids don't live far. Shauna's kids live far away, but there's just nothing better than having everybody under my roof. And um so family, for sure, it's just such a rich time. It's so
Mm.
life-giving. But community is so important. It just reminds me how much we need people. We need relationship. We need that, processing and growing and all that stuff that happens when we are doing life right with somebody. So such a gift.
Yeah. I feel like we should know this right now better than ever, having just gone through COVID. I mean, I know it was a few years ago now. It's wow, 2024, and 4 years ago. That doesn't seem possible, really. But 4 years ago since COVID. But during the whole season of COVID, when we, were mandated to stay home and to not be able to gather together, we felt that. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean we can't go to church? I remember putting on my Easter dress to sit on my couch with my family for the Easter service. It was just bizarre to not be going to church on that morning. But yeah, I feel like right now, coming out of COVID, we should have just a really high appreciation for and value for community. But I do know lots of folks who, during the season of COVID, that just became a rhythm that just felt really good. And it was like, oh, wow, I can watch the service and I don't have to gather with other believers. And there's something just really great about hanging out in your pajamas and having, a scone and some coffee while you watch church. But God created us to be in community and we need each other. It's really important.
It is. It's an important part of our growth. It's an important part of our walk. It's even that just kind of processing life together, doing life side by side, it actually matters. This is where we grow. And it's literally what we're modeling out in our podcast is that these kind of conversations and doing life together and processing where we're growing is really important to our growth, and we can't do that alone. There's no, they say there's no such thing as like a solitary Christian. I can do this all by myself and I don't need anybody else in my world. And I agree with you. During COVID, I think it actually gave almost permission for people to lean into that. And just want to encourage you, we need community. We need to be around other believers. We need encouragement. I just came from Bible study, women's Bible study, and we have about 40 women that gather on Wednesday morning and another 40 that gather on Tuesday night. We do the exact same study, and another smaller group that gather on Thursday night. But just coming out of that, it's so fun to hear kind of the processing that's taking place and questions that are asked about the study we just did, even as people are walking to their cars. We need people. We need people in
Mhm.
our corner, but we also need to process our learning and our growing in our walk with God in community.
Yeah, there's actually a couple of different, I think, ways in which that is so good for us. And one of them is when I'm asked what I'm learning, there's one level of having read through scripture, having journaled and had a conversation with the Lord. There's like a level of learning there. But when I have to articulate that and I have to make words happen to describe what I'm learning and what I'm going through, that just, wow, it just presses it in even that much deeper. It makes it that much clearer when I have to articulate it. And then the other aspect of that is, when we're looking at a scripture together, we're reading about the character of God together and understanding him more through his word. It's almost as if, if you picture yourself sitting in a circle, the word is right in the center and we're all looking at it from a different angle and we have different perspectives and we can learn from one another. So we may have read, I don't know, 5 verses and it was the first 2 words that grabbed my attention. And what I gathered out of that, I share that. And for you, it was, you know what? For me, it was that last phrase. And this is what really hit me. And so we come to a clearer understanding of what our learning was through it. And then we also have the opportunity to learn things that didn't even stand out to us.
Right. And we literally watched that happen this morning. We have a leaders meeting before all of the other ladies show up, and we actually go through the whole lesson together as the leaders on Wednesday mornings. And there was so much back and forth, and there were those aha moments where it was like, "Oh my goodness, how did I not see that?" Um, and then somebody else would bring a little bit more in, and it wasn't things that we had written down on our Bible study. It was learning in the moment because we were learning from each other, and that's such a great gift. The learning becomes deeper and I think more rooted when we get to do it that way, and it definitely grows. But the other thing you said too, like when we speak it, I notice this when I mentor people and also in my mentoring relationships when I get mentored, is often when there's a learning and I say it out loud, there it solidifies it. It
Mm.
helps me almost put it into an implementation kind of a understanding instead of just a, oh, I'm learning. It's like, no, this now has action to it because I got to speak it and now it actually makes more sense to me and I know how to move in it. That's a gift, right? I mean, are you an out kind of verbal processor too? I know the answer, but
Yes, I am a verbal processor. But the other part of saying it out loud is there's accountability there too.
yes. Which, what a gift to have accountability. in our growth.
And accountability, not meaning, I'm going to stand over you until you do it and you do something. I'm talking accountability like I share with you, wow, the Lord really revealed to me that I'm holding on to unforgiveness in this specific area. And this is not going to be easy for me, but I do know that I'm going to see her on Friday. And I just would so love it if you guys would be praying into that with me. And then guess what? Next week, somebody's going to say, I prayed for you on Friday. How'd it go? I mean, that's I think what loving accountability looks like when we come together.
Right. And then that gives you an opportunity, because how often do we now we get to Friday and everything goes well and we don't think about it again. But when somebody asks, then all of a sudden you're reminded, "Oh, God's faithfulness. He saw me through this. He was present." It's that beautiful bringing back and then actually remembering what God did for us, and that's such a beautiful thing. The other thing I think that comes from community, making sure that we're doing our Christian walk in community. I always tell people this. We have a pretty large church. And so it's pretty easy to slip out of the pew, not show up for a few weeks and not have somebody notice, because we have a larger church. If you have a small group that you're a part of, there's eight people who gather to study the Bible together, or like in our study this morning, 40 women gather, but then we break into small groups and you belong to that small group. You can't slip out of a group of eight because they're going to notice
Mm.
that you're not there. And that's one of the beautiful gifts about community is there's belonging, there's the accountability. Not, I mean, this is taking accountability to a different level, but there's the accountability of you need to show up, because if you're not
Mm.
showing up, I'm going to notice, and I'm going to text you. I'm going to give you a phone call. I'm going to tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, you haven't been there and you matter and I miss you. We miss our
Mhm.
conversation when you're not there." And so it's just a beautiful thing to belong to a community.
Yeah. I think part of the belonging aspect too is that we get to help carry each other's burdens. So I gave the
Yeah.
example of, I'm going to see her on, and I made this up, but I'm going to see so and so on Friday, and I know I've been holding on to bitterness, and I need to extend forgiveness and whatever. Pray for me about that. Y'all, the people I share that with are going to be praying into that. So not just is there accountability in that, but there's also I'm not alone in that anymore.
Yeah.
There's people who love me who want God's best for me, and so I we get to carry it together.
Yeah. And that's true in small groups like that. Being in a Bible study with a group of people, that's true in all those scenarios. It's also true even just in relationships. So for you and I, Shauna, we have you've heard us say many times, we have two other sisters, but we can reach out to each other and we can share a struggle, or we can share something that we are excited about, or we can share a learning, or maybe a door that it seems like the Lord is opening and we're not quite sure how to walk in that. We have places where we can share that and we can process together, knowing that our loved ones or our friends are going to hold that with us. I have a friend, Kelly, that I have. What my sister's name is Kelly too. Our sister's name is Kelly too, but this is a friend named Kelly, and then my daughter-in-law is Kellen. So lots of Kelly, Kellen. I use the nickname Kel for all three of them, but my friend Kelly, we've walked together on Friday mornings. We used to just meet for coffee when the kids were real little. We would meet at 5 a.m. because that was the one time we could get together and still get back home and get our kids ready for school. But we walk every morning. We've done that for, it's coming up on 19 years, that
Oh
on
my
Friday,
goodness.
I know. So we
That's
in
a
my
long
house
time.
call it coffee with Kelly. Um, yeah, but it's that community. It's that, what a beautiful time for us to connect. And sometimes there's been time seasons where we've read a book together and processed that. We're in Bible study together, so we're talking about that. She's one of the leaders for Women's Walk on Tuesday nights along with me, and so that's, we can process that kind of lesson out. And so many times it's life. It's doing life as a Christian mom, wife, friend, sister. It's processing that together and just walking side by side. and we get a 3-mile walk in too. But it's such a gift. Like that kind of community is so important and we need to seek it out. It takes intentionality. We don't, we didn't get up at 4:30 to be at the coffee shop by 5 a.m. because it was fun to do that at that time. Like it was because it mattered and it took work and it
Mm,
was valuable and it was worth it. And I'm so grateful that we have done this for so many years. But here
yeah.
again, like even in a one-on-one, community matters.
Yeah, I think to you saying, if you're listening right now and you're hearing Jode say that she's got this friend that she's met with for 19 years, that and they go for the walk, and you're thinking, I don't have somebody like that in my life. There's some really very practical, very simple steps that you can take to help to maybe open up a relationship like that. And one of them might be maybe maybe join a women's Bible study and get to know
Mhm.
people, and you can kind of tell, like, I like her, she's kind of like me, or oh, I'd love to spend more time with her and get to know her better. And then ask them to meet you for coffee and hang out and get to know each other a little bit better. And I think too, we can step into it. Like, you don't have to say, okay, so I went to Bible study and I like her. Can you meet with me every Thursday at 4:30? Because that's just a little creepy. That's a little intimidating. That's a little much to come on all at once. But you can just kind of tiptoe into it and say, oh, it'd be so fun to get coffee outside of Bible study if you're ever interested. Here's my number, whatever the case may be, and see if it's a mutual situation. But there are ways that we can put ourselves in community and be intentional about seeking out potential relationships like that.
Right. And I think it's so important in a relationship like that. Like I mean 19 years ago, I didn't have that either. But then we started this, let's try meeting once a week and it worked. But yes, you first have to find out if you're compatible. I always say this in mentoring relationships too. You don't have to sign up to have somebody be your mentor and then you are locked into them for the next 10 years. Like you have to meet and see what that relationship is, and is this working, is this something we want to do? So you kind of try it on and see if that works, and that's a great thing. We had kids, our daughters were the same age, her oldest and my daughter, and so that brought some real common ground for us and put us in the same places at the same time, and that then that developed into just a beautiful friendship that so many years later I can look back and say, wow, I'm so grateful for that gift. But we need to test that out. And it is something simple like, hey, do you want to grab a cup of coffee? And yes, that's a little bit risky, but it's a great way to get to know people, and you can kind of get to know some different people like that too. So it's
Yeah.
it's a good challenge. We need to get out there and do that and make new friends.
Put yourself
And
out there a
church,
little bit. You're
yeah,
worth it. You're
right.
worth knowing. It's really fun.
Absolutely. Church is another great way to meet people. It's a great place to meet people, and especially people who are like-minded in what we believe. And so that's just it's a good thing to keep in mind. So when we need to watch church online, that's a gift too, but we need to be in community. We need to get ourselves out there. That's where we're going to meet other believers and be able to challenge each other to grow.
I think one of the ways that community has so blessed my life, just being in relationship with other women who are also pursuing Jesus. I'm sure I've shared this on the podcast before, but I'm going to go ahead and say it again. If you want to get a horse to run faster, you put that horse on a track with faster horses. So if you're wanting to grow spiritually, if you're wanting to pursue the Lord spiritually and grow in your intimacy with him, get alongside other girls who are doing the same thing. But one of the things community wise that has been such a blessing to me is I wish my whole life was just this perfect trajectory of upwards, to the right. Like I just am always more faithful today than I was yesterday, more full of faith. But there are times when the enemy has influence on my life and we've been talking about lies all year, right? So yeah, there are lies that enter in, that message enters in, and having other people in my life who are following Jesus can remind me of what's true and almost like have faith for me. Like, I know you can't see it right now, but I do. So I'm going to pray into it for you. So we almost kind of, we need each other to remind each other who we are in Jesus as we're walking this out.
Yeah, I love that picture. And we also need each other to um I trying to think of how to even put this in the right words, but to continue to spur us on, to help us
Mhm.
remember the aha moments, to remind us who we are in Christ. It's all of those things that are such a gift that come out of community. And so, yeah, I mean, we definitely need each other.
Have you ever heard of Ubuntu?
No.
Okay, it's an African term, and but I'm gonna tell you the story as best as I can remember it. But it means community. It means if it's not good for you, it's not good for me. It's a way that um, uh, that certain tribes and people in Africa interact with one another. And anyway, there's a story of around this idea of a village where if somebody commits a crime or does something that's outside of their character, they put that person in the center of a circle and everybody circles around them and they remind him or her who they are. So you would think they put him in the center of the circle and they say, you know, what you did was bad, or you hurt my family, or let me tell you how that impacted our community. But no, they remind him of who they are because they said, if you're acting outside of your character, you've forgotten who you are. So we're going to tell you. And so they just literally circle around them, speak truth over them until it washes over them. And they just experience such a tangible grace. Isn't that cool? I feel like that's something the church could get better at.
That is beautiful. What a beautiful picture. And what a gift when you're really questioning who you are and you're starting to maybe, make some mistakes to have people speak that over you. My goodness, that is incredibly powerful.
But you can't do that when you're by yourself.
Exactly. You
Sorry, Josie. You
can't.
can't do that
Yeah.
alone. Yeah.
Yeah. Another place that I think community happens so beautifully is around a table. And that's modeled over and over in the Bible of Jesus gathering with people over a meal. That was the way they did it back then. They gathered together over a meal. And I think that's something that we've really probably not done really, really well. As a family, we do sit down for dinner together almost every single night. It is rare that we do not sit down and have dinner together. Our daughter is a nurse and so she gets home late a couple days a week. But Johnny and I always sit down and eat our dinner together because that's an important part. It's a place where we can process our day. We can talk about what's happening or what's coming. We can communicate. It's just a beautiful time. And so if you live alone, plan dinner with somebody, invite them over or go out for dinner. That's always fun too.
Yeah, we have friends that own a restaurant in Sun City West. It's called Hole in One. So if you're in the Arizona area and you want to check it out, go check them out. They're wonderful. His name is Marty, her name is Kim. But they have at the center of their restaurant, they used to have all individual tables like most restaurants do, but they created a community table down the center of the restaurant. And the reason was they recognized, specifically being in Sun City and serving an older community, how often somebody would come in the morning. They'd have regular customers that came in and ordered tea and toast. And Marty said, there's not a person on the planet who can't make themselves a cup of tea and a piece of toast. So they're not coming for our tea and toast. They're coming because somebody's going to, it's going to make me cry telling you this, but somebody's going to say, good morning. How are you?
Right.
And there's going to be conversation. There's going to be interaction. We need this. We were created for this. So they created this table down the center of the restaurant, the community table, where if somebody comes in by themselves, they get seated at that table. And so soon, if they start by themselves, soon they'll be surrounded by people.
That is beautiful. Oh my goodness. It reminds me of that need to, like we all need to be seen. We want to be noticed. And so often I remind myself like put your eyes up. Pick your eyes up and see people. They're not objects in the way. Like we need to see people and really recognize them. I don't know if I've told this story before, but there's this beautiful illustration that I use a lot when I teach about and it is a true story. but there was a clinician that was studying to become a psychologist, I think, or something in that field, and they were working in this certain um, institution or hospital where there were people who had mental health needs. And so there was a one patient that every single day would come out and lay face down in the middle of the hallway. And all of the workers would have to step over her every time they went through the main hallway. And then at the end of the day, she would stand up and go back in her room and go to her bed. And she wouldn't speak, she wouldn't communicate, she wouldn't connect with anybody. And so finally, this gentleman who was learning in this process, he just thought, I'm just going to sit down by her because she won't communicate. She won't do anything. She just lays face down. And so he sat by her, and then pretty soon he laid down next to her.
Mm.
And when he laid down, I'm going to try kind of when he laid down next to her, she turned and looked at him, and there was a connection. And finally, she sat up next to him and she began to talk to him. And he said, why did you do this every single day? Why do you come out and lay in the middle of the hallway? And she said, because nobody sees me.
Mm.
She just wanted to be seen. She just wanted to be seen. And so we are not meant to do life all alone. And I know there's introvert, extrovert. I know all of that. I am on right in the middle of that line. I think we've talked about this. You are too. So I need time alone and I need time in community. But we, even for an introvert, like we still need community, safe community. I get that, but we need community. We are not meant to do this alone. One of the things that I cannot get past thinking about as a believer, we are called to serve God and worship him. He models community in the Trinity. God the Father, God
Mhm.
the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. We are called as Christians to proclaim the gospel, to tell others about who Jesus is. And we cannot do that if we don't ever encounter people. We want to live out our life to show people who God is, and we have to do that in community or around other people. It's so important.
It is. And this is okay, so I'm going to just I know we're going to be wrapping up in a minute here, but I'm just going to be honest and say we've really done a good job. I want to high five you, Jodes, of selling community and the need to be a part of it. I feel like we've killed it. However, not everybody is wonderful. And not every community is life giving. I just want to be honest about this. Okay. So if you're thinking, you know what? I was a part of a Bible study. It was awful. Maybe you need to try a different one.
Mhm.
But even if it's that group of people, if you pray into it and you feel like God's saying you're supposed to go back, I want you in community. Being with people who are difficult to be with is also going to make you more like Jesus. And we don't have to necessarily put ourselves in a scenario like, wow, that one's really tough. I'm going to go, spend every day with that one because she's really, really hard to get along with, or he's really difficult. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, as we come together in community, we've had this conversation with pretty decent rose-colored glasses, and it's not all it's not all unicorns and rainbows, but it is God's perfect plan for you. And if you mentioned the Trinity, Jodes, I mean, if God is community, you certainly need it. If Jesus needs community, if the Father needs community, if the Spirit needs community, then so do you. So yeah, whatever it is that right now you need to do to shake up your isolation, any place that you're not living alongside other Christ followers, I just want to encourage you to think of maybe one thing, just one thing that you can do in the next week that puts you alongside other believers. Maybe it's going to church on Sunday. It's Palm Sunday this Sunday. This would be a great Sunday to show up at church and be with other believers. Maybe it's, and then after that, maybe it's another step after that, but it might be something different, and I'm not going to give it to you. Go ahead and ask the Lord, and he'll share with you. He'll direct you because he loves you so much and he talks to his kids. But I just want to encourage you to take one step into community this week.
Yeah. And I would say stay inquisitive, like ask questions. learn about people. It's a fun thing. I love learning about people. There's so much for us to gain when we're willing to enter into that. So the lie that we can be a solitary Christian all alone with no community, not interacting with people at all is a lie. God created us to be in community, and that might be for some of us. We need my future son-in-law loves people, and so he could be
Mhm.
surrounded by hundreds of people at all times and he thrives. Where, I watch my daughter who is more like, okay, we need to reel it in and not spend so much time with people. It's just a different personality. I'm the same way. Like, I can spend time with people, but then I need to have some time alone. And so, this is, we want you to enter in a healthy and good way, but community is a beautiful thing. So as you go out there and you find a friend, a Bible study to join, a community to belong to, remember, we serve a real God and he really loves you.